The 2023 Alberta election will be here before you know it, and it looks like it'll be a close battle. We're joined today by Drew Barnes, who is the independent MLA for Cypress Medicine Hat. Welcome back to Bridge City News. Drew, great to have you on again.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so you decided not to run under the banner of the United Conservative Party, but will you be running as an independent candidate?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm still researching it, and I'm talking to mostly my constituents, who about half of them want me to continue in that way. And then I've been talking to give or take 20 other conservative Albertans, mostly in rural Alberta, who are interested in doing something together, whether that's a party or a loosely connected group of independents. So yeah, in the next 2 weeks, I'll be making my final decision. But it's so important that Alberta families be in charge, that Alberta be the freest, most prosperous place. And we'll see what the next 2 weeks brings.
Yeah, okay. So Drew, what were your overall thoughts on the recent provincial budget?
Oh, I was very disappointed. First of all, Premier Smith and the UCP missed the chance to really help the affordability crisis that families are undergoing right now. They could have cut taxes, end the 2% small business tax to help small businesses, raise the personal exemption so all families, all Albertans paid less taxes. And what they did instead was come up with a mechanism for a handout here, a handout there, picking winners and losers, picking favorites. It's so disappointing. And also what's disappointing to me is they're estimating that oil and gas royalties are going to be up from 3 billion to about 16 billion. Actually, last year, oil and gas royalties hit 27 billion, thank goodness. And they're increasing spending, 13 billion. By the same amount, they're increasing oil and gas taxes up. So it's just another spending government rather than cutting taxes and leaving families and individuals in charge.
Yeah, interesting. So you were hoping to see some broad-based tax relief for Albertans in the provincial budget. Are there some specific areas maybe that need to see some tax changes?
There sure are. First of all, this inflationary crisis we're going through, and it's laughable. The Federal Reserve in America, the central bank in Canada, is raising interest rates through the roof, really testing the affordability for Alberta families. And at the same time, governments are spending more, throwing fuel on the fire. It's crazy. So what I would have liked to have seen, right now, no Albertan pays Alberta tax till they make over about 19,000. I would have liked to have seen that risen to 30,000. So all Albertans have more opportunity to have more money in their pockets and invest in their needs and their future. Secondly, the small business tax. Alberta and Manitoba have already Saskatchewan and Manitoba have already reduced their small business tax to zero. Alberta's paid 2% on top of our 10% federal small business tax. Let's reduce that to zero. Small businesses had such a tough time during COVID. Let's give people an incentive to get off the couch and give us services. And then thirdly, back to our 10% flat tax. Alberta attracted a lot of capital, a lot of quality individuals under Ralph Klein when we had a 10% flat tax. Of course, Rachel Notley raised that to 15 on top of Justin Trudeau raising the federal tax to 34%. So we can pay as high as 49% tax in this province. It's time to give hardworking Albertans a break.
Okay, so Drew, what do you foresee as the biggest election issues this spring? Is it all about affordability?
It's mostly about affordability and the fact that we've seen, healthcare in crisis. We've seen our education system slip. We've seen government utilities and no competition in the insurance or other industries like telephone, cable, and airlines. So Albertans know that our government systems are broken, and they're asking for more money to be left in their pocket so they have a better chance. Now there's some other issues. Crime, the fact that crime has snowballed. So many of our cities are not safe, particularly in our downtowns. People are asking for democratic reform. They've seen nominations be meddled in. They've seen, politicians not be accountable, and they're looking for change that way. And then the third thing is affordability, lower taxes.
Wow. Okay, so speaking of affordability, should the provincial government continue to offer affordability relief payments to seniors and families with kids? I mean, it's a good thing, but I feel like there's so many people that are left out of that piece of the puzzle. So what about people who have older kids living at home, like say a university student, for example? They're basically still dependents because they can't work full time. They're still students. What about the
Exactly,
healthcare?
and more expensive needs and a more expensive life. I would like to see the Alberta government focus on two things. First of all, spend less so they can tax less. Let's let all Albertans keep more money in their pockets, so they have a chance to direct their own future and they have a chance to end some of this inflation. But secondly, competition. Our utilities are so not competitive. We all know when we open a utility bill, our incendiary costs are as higher than our natural gas or our electricity uses. We know in insurance, I just saw a report that again shows that Alberta has the highest car insurance in all Canada. It is so time to make these industries more competitive, so Albertans have more choice and we can get some more competition and better pricing.
Okay, Drew, the Alberta Sovereignty Act will likely get some attention this spring, and I understand that you agree with some of the principles in the Act. So are there some changes that you would like to see in the Act?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, we all know that Alberta sends over 25 billion a year to Ottawa, which large parts of it make its way to Quebec and the Maritimes. I just saw a report that shows that the Quebec Generational Fund, which the province of Quebec is saving money for their children, is now larger than the Alberta Heritage Trust Fund. Our money being rerouted where it's not going to help our kids. So absolutely, this is important that we do it. First of all, it's time for us to start to use the notwithstanding clause in the Canadian Constitution, even if at times if it's just symbolic. And when it comes to the Alberta Sovereignty Act, if Ottawa is overstepping our into Alberta jurisdiction, like they are with the carbon tax, like they are with not giving us resource movement, it is so time to step in and insist on that happening. And if it doesn't happen, asking Albertans to hold Ottawa accountable.
Okay, let's switch gears here for a second. Healthcare, it's a big one. So the NDP will likely campaign hard against any moves towards privatization. But if we just keep throwing more money with the same system, nothing seems to change. So what would you like to see happen to create better healthcare, Drew? For example, how can we reduce wait times for surgery?
Oh, you're absolutely right. They've been throwing more and more money at it. This year's budget, which was just released last week, healthcare is over $26 billion. The more per year, though, that's 40% of what Alberta spends, and Alberta government spending too much. And throwing money at it doesn't make our solutions any better. There's some real things we need to do. First of all, we need to return to more local decision making, where local people have control over what happens in their area. Secondly, when it comes to wait times, I'm hearing about inefficiencies throughout the systems. Procedures being late, procedures not being organized, and Alberta Health Services bureaucracy budget is now $600 million a year. It is so time to insist on value for that. But then we also have to get it innovative. Hey, Mayo clinics. Let's maybe have a not-for-profit Mayo clinic somewhere in Alberta, publicly funded, so everybody gets equal access. But let's put in some choice and competition. Likewise, we need some wait time guarantees that if you can't get your surgery in a normal period of time, you get the opportunity to go to a different clinic, like a private clinic, again, publicly funded, but you get access to make that happen. The report that came out in the healthcare budget a week ago shows that very, very few, if any, of our procedures do we meet the Canadian standard for wait times, and it's just so broken.
Oh, it is. Any ideas also on how to attract and retain family physicians?
Yeah, two things we got to do. There's so many good Alberta kids that want into medical school. There's not enough spots for them. The bar it's the number of kids that approach my office with perfect grade point averages and great volunteer records that can't get into medical school. It's amazing. So let's start to train a whole bunch of Alberta kids to be doctors, and at the same time, nurse practitioners. Nurse practitioners, an area that we don't use enough, and provide excellent service. Let's not only start to train more nurse practitioners, but let's give them billing access so they can charge the Albertan taxpayer for their services as well. And then let's start to bring the whole budget in line so we make sure we, the people of Alberta, get value for the taxes we spend.
Mm-hmm. You brought up an interesting point there, Drew. What is going on with the post-secondaries that the local kids can't get in?
It just makes you wonder. We need direction from the government that that they have to accept more Alberta kids. There's a number of foreign medical students in there, and that's good. But if we need more spots, let's fund more spots. I also think that the spots now are in Edmonton and Calgary, of course, with our two big universities. Mm-hmm. Why don't we look at putting some spots in communities like Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Grand Prairie, and Red Deer? Maybe we have to streamline kids into medicine as well. A lot of them get in at 26, 28 years old, so by the time they start to help Albertans, they're well into their working lives. Maybe it's time to streamline that, and we the people of Alberta just have to get insistent and serious about demanding that instead of going to Montana for our knee or our hip replacement or waiting months to get into our system here, that we get support for all these high taxes we pay.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, what about our senior citizens? Do we have enough seniors' homes and staff for them?
Well, I'm concerned about that. We saw during the COVID crisis that many of the great hardworking senior care assistants were working in 2, 3, or 4 of these places, stretched already very, very thin. So I think it's important that we make sure that the right amount of taxpayer money is focused there. Partly we have to stop caring about politics and ideology, and we have to focus more on the senior needs. I'm grateful to represent Cypress Medicine Hat for over 11 years, but one of the things that's happened when the NDP was in power, they seem to want to go mostly towards publicly owned senior citizen support places. When the Conservatives in power, we want to go more to private ones. I think it's time to make sure that all types of services, including not-for-profit, are there to support our hardworking seniors and make sure that they're there when they need to be.
Mm-hmm. Do we need maybe more workers to help seniors to stay in their own homes longer, perhaps?
Absolutely, a fantastic idea. And I think we should even maybe look at some family members doing that. One of the things I've talked about for 11 years is what you call a volunteer tax credit, where if you decide to stay home to help your mom or dad stay in their home longer, if you decide to do that with a neighbor, you should have some kind of small or whatever, we should just discuss how much tax credit off your income, so you're supported for doing that. And that, you're absolutely right. In addition, with training more hardworking healthcare workers so seniors can stay in their home. And I know, the carbon tax and gas and all these things are expensive, but it's an important need to make sure we fulfill this.
Okay, well, let's talk energy for a minute here. So the federal Liberals say good news. They want Alberta to just transition away from fossil fuels into green energy. And they say Alberta oil and gas workers will then switch over to new green jobs. So what are your thoughts on what needs to happen for our energy sector?
Well, first of all, the just transition is going to cost Alberta 250,000 jobs. We already know that we're the most environmentally friendly producer in the entire world. Secondly, let's look good old common sense. We look at our utility bills as they add more and more renewables. Our utility bills are only going up. So that tells you that mechanism is not working. And the hypocrisy astounds me. We keep hearing about China and India adding 250 coal-fired electric plants a year. Never mind the fact that in China anyway, they make fertilizer and methanol with coal instead of clean-burning natural gas. And here we are not adding liquefied natural gas on the Canadian West Coast so we can get it there. Let's talk realistically about our problems and our issues. Oil and gas, this was one of the tougher winters. We couldn't survive up here without the carbon molecule. And if we really care about pollution and helping the rest of the world, let's get liquefied natural gas to India and China as fast as possible.
Well, real quick, Drew, in a lot of Alberta communities, crime reduction is a real issue. And of course, you mentioned it at the top of the interview here. So it's often tied closely to addiction issues. So are there some maybe practical steps that need to be taken to deal with these issues?
Oh, thank you for that question. Absolutely. I hear about this problem all the time. Number one, let's get people suffering from addictions meaningful help. People, into detox and rehabilitation centers on a timely basis. I always hear about how that just doesn't happen. And let's show that we care. And I've also heard many times about how some of the money that's already directed towards helping these people actually encourages them to stay on the streets, because instead of using it for for residents, a rental, they end up using it to support their addictions. So it's time that Albertans, it's time that the people that are already being paid to be in that system do everything they can to magnify and get that help to these people quicker. And then the other part is everybody has to understand that there's going to be consequences for their actions. We keep hearing about the 10th crime before somebody's, does some jail time or a meaningful penalty. All Albertans have to understand that there's consequences for their actions, and we need our policing and our justice system to focus deeper on those two things as well.
Thanks so much for being with us today, Drew. We're out of time, but great to have you on again.
Well, thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day.
You as well. Drew Barnes is the independent MLA for Cypress Medicine Hat. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.